Hello and hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Christian Buckley with Smarter Consulting, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar, The Future of Public Forms. And excited to get in. Everybody's excited? Peter, Sharon, ready?
I'm always excited to be talking to you two. So.
All right. Well, if you have spent any time trying to collect data from people outside of your organization, so customers, partners, event attendees, you've probably run into a few headaches. There are some quirks with forms and the various solutions that are out there. So today's webinar will walk through the out-of-the-box solutions and showcase the latest solutions from SnapOn and hopefully answer your questions about what is included in your current licensing. Maybe we'll get into all the licensing stuff, when you should build or when you should buy. So let me put this back up on screen. There we go. Our goal here is 30 minutes with some Q&A left at the end, if that's okay with everybody. I don't know if you guys have a preference for questions during or wait to the end. I know we're trying to be time sensitive as well. Any preference? Are you good?
Either way.
Either way. All right. Ask your questions, folks. We will be watching those and address those. If we don't get to a question, all the questions before the end, we will respond afterwards. And yes, we are recording the session. We'll make it available on demand through various channels and to all those who registered. So please ask your questions. We'll be chatting in the background as well. And with that, why don't we jump into some introductions? And so very quickly, joining me today are Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting, and Peter Baddeley, Director of Go-to-Market Sales and Client Solutions at SnapOn Software. But I will let them more fully introduce themselves and their companies.
Hello, Christian. Thank you so much for organizing this. My name is Sharon Weaver. I am the founder and CEO of Smarter Consulting. I have been in technology. I've been getting paid professionally to be in technology for 30 years as of the end of this year. So October, this is my 30th anniversary. And I have spent my entire career designing, developing, and managing some sort of a technical solution somewhere. Along the way, I've gotten really heavy into the Microsoft ecosystem. And as you can see, I've collected a few designations along the way. Really what this means is that I spend a lot of my extra time providing feedback back to Microsoft and really getting to know Microsoft products as well as I can. But it doesn't mean that Microsoft's the only tool that I use. It just means it's one of the biggest and baddest. And I also really am a process nerd. And so thus the Six Sigma Black Belt and the Business and Systems Analysis certificate. Basically, I just really like trying to help people figure out how to make technology serve them instead of them serving technology. And then Smarter Consulting is a women-owned business. We started about a little over 8 years ago in 2017. We really try to focus on taking care of our clients and build relationships so that we can make sure that they get whatever they need. Peter here is one of our partners, much like many of our partners. What we really try to do, and we're going to talk a little bit about this later, is we really try to bring best of breed to our clients, meaning that while Microsoft is always a great solution, it's not always the only solution. And so our goal is to strategically advise our clients and make sure that they are getting the best of whatever it is that they're trying to do. We have a couple of pillars that we work on. So our primary one is consulting services, essentially anything and everything around the Microsoft platform, and then process-based solutions around that. We also do a ton of training. So while this pillar is a little bit smaller than the consulting pillar, it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger every day. We do a ton of training. As you can imagine, as part of all of this, we really want to make sure that people are using things the way that they should. So when we think about governance, risk, and compliance, we've built this third pillar called Smart Governance, which is to help you understand what tools you've got. Are you using them correctly? Are things being managed properly? And then we've recently, over the last couple of years, started building custom applications. And so now we're bringing applications into the market as well.
All right, and Peter.
I've been in tech slightly less than Sharon. My background initially is in Microsoft consulting space. I've been working with Microsoft for about 25 years. And then from consulting, I sort of switched to software and software product management about 6 or 7 years ago. I founded a SaaS company called Provision Point, which joined App Efficiency Group a few years ago. And this year, we combined all of our products under the SnapOn Software brand, which I'll talk a little bit more in a second. My role there is Director of GTM Sales and Client Solutions. I like to say I'm the most technical salesperson you'll meet and the least salesy salesperson you meet. I have specialized in Microsoft and Microsoft sort of SharePoint and Teams for a long time, but I branched out a lot into both CRM, ERP, and into other ecosystems as well. My background, I did a lot of work in sort of community conferences and speakers, which is where I know both of you two from originally.
And I think I've known both of you like right around the same time. So it's been about 15 years for both of you. So long time. We're getting old.
SnapOn Software, as I said, it's a new brand. It brings together 3 different sort of product portfolios. So I mentioned my previous company, Provision Point, KWIZ or QuizCom, which probably a number of you are familiar with. It's been in the market for a long time. And then App Efficiency had its own SST product line for Oracle NetSuite products. Our product lines cross currently Microsoft and NetSuite, but we're looking to bring in other ecosystems over the next few weeks and months and years. And really, we're focused around sort of, as the name says, snapping on. So bringing stuff which complements those solutions, fits some of those gaps, and helps you deliver specific requirements, whether that's in collaboration, governance, or specific industry focuses.
Excellent. Well, thanks to both of you. Let's jump into it in the interest of time here and open things up. Let's start with what we're calling the public forms dilemma. And so Sharon, can I hand this off to you? Kind of thinking about like inside your tenant, forms are easy. We've all used Microsoft Forms for years and years and years. But the second you need to collect information from outside of your organization, things start to get tricky. There's certain things we want to automate, we want to do more with, and there are different options that are out there. So Sharon, why don't you walk us through what that actually looks like for most organizations today?
Yeah. So, and this is a very common thing that I chat with people about, is that they're using some sort of form tool, and Microsoft Forms is a really easy tool to use. And so a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I'll just use Microsoft Forms. I'll collect some information. And like you mentioned, we end up running into roadblocks. So, I want to send a form out and collect information from people, and no big deal. Let them add an attachment. No, never mind. If you're outside the organization, you're not allowed to do that. And so we run into these challenges and roadblocks all day, every day, of trying to do things with forms whenever you have people that are outside your organization, which is a very, very common use case. And so what ends up happening, just like everything, as we get into this realm of shadow IT, where users will find a solution that does work. And it doesn't matter if it's using a different forms tool or something that's more intended to be a consumer-based tool, or maybe they have an app or something that ultimately isn't part of your enterprise managed environment. They're going to figure out a way to go around it to solve their problem. And so ultimately, the hope for the solution is a tool that's going to allow us to have one primary interface to do all the things that we want to be able to do, but then connect the dots and stay within that secure, access managed environment that the enterprise can manage. So we talked a little bit about like some of the tools that people use. So out of the box in Microsoft 365, we have Microsoft Forms. The really nice thing about Microsoft Forms, the benefit to Microsoft Forms, first of all, they're incredibly easy. So if you've ever used Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, really easy to spin up. You just kind of say what questions you want. As far as external access goes, you can set up external access. In fact, this is probably the number one thing that I see, is that people will create a form and then create anonymous access, meaning that they just have to have a link. They don't have to log in for anything. The only thing is that there's limitations around the specific features that you can use when you're not using it inside your organization. The other option that you have is things like list forms. And so those are like forms that are associated with Microsoft Lists or SharePoint or Power Platform. And again, those can be shared out with external users, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And it's very, very tricky. And even then, there's a lot of roadblocks, limitations, complexities. And most organizations really don't want to manage those levels of complexity. So instead of saying, let's figure out how to do this and let's train all our users on what they can do and can't do, they just shut them off. And they say, nope, you can use them internally, and that's the only option. And so we say this best fit or best practices for internal or authenticated audiences, because at the end of the day, anything beyond that is either too complex to mess with or it runs into roadblocks that just aren't worth it. So like I mentioned, one of the options is Power Platform. So you can use Power Platform to build some external solutions. In fact, we've done this for several of our clients. The only downside is that it's, again, very, very, very complex, and your only choices are either public access or internal access. There's not that kind of married up approach where you can be integrated to those complexities of having like authenticated users. It's a lot harder to do that. There is Power Pages, which allows you to do that, but I don't know if you guys have known this, but it's really difficult to set up a Power Pages portal. It's a lot of extra work. You have to have dedicated resources to manage it. It's a great solution, but it's very, very time and money intensive to be able to set up that solution. So building with the Power Platform, again, really designed to be internal solutions for the most part, but anything outside of that, again, a lot of complexity, a lot of roadblocks. So what's missing, right? And so we have this kind of idea of anonymous access. And what we mean by anonymous access that exists now is we can essentially make anonymous links, meaning that people can access things. But there's really no true like public access without having a fully fledged website of some sort, which requires a lot of effort. But from the form level, there's really no true anonymous or public access that really exists. Once we start talking about forms, now you can come and debate me and say, yeah, but there's these solutions, there's these platforms. We're not talking about the gap in platforms. We're talking about the gaps in form solutions themselves. And so form solutions themselves really don't have much around streamlined governance or compliance, especially for external users. If they don't have an account, there's really no way to manage like who's logging in or how we give access to that. Definitely no simplified form management for external access or for users outside of your organization. And then we talk about support and maintenance, and this is like, in my opinion, probably the number one concern and the number one risk for most solutions is there's not really a lot of sustainability around support and maintenance for any form solution that exists right now. I think Microsoft Forms has gone a long ways in terms of being able to share it with groups and have multiple owners. But again, that's internal. That's not this kind of external model. So there's a lot of gaps that still remain in the form solution environment.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Sharon. I wanted to call out a use case which will demonstrate our form solution in a second, but a use case which came up for one of our customers. And a lot of it goes back to that idea that people want the data to go into SharePoint particularly easily, but to then be able to do all of their internal workflows and manage that data effectively. But they potentially want to put those forms on their website or through some other platform and easily and make it look good. That's the other thing. Make it not look like it's a Power App or a Microsoft form. And so we're working with one customer. They're a government agency, and they use both our internal form solution within their SharePoint environment to manage a lot of their internal workflows. And the one which we work with them on was some of their HR, HCM workflows. And then they have a public form or multiple public forms on their website where people could make applications. And so this was things like job applications, for people to make complaints or report things to them. Really actually quite simple forms where you're potentially trying to capture some contact information from people. You need to validate to make sure that the information they provide is valid. You're maybe wanting to upload files, as you mentioned, so you want to capture all of that data. And then you want that data to immediately go into your workflow within your SharePoint list. You don't necessarily want it to go to a Excel spreadsheet or to a third part, to go to Google Forms, and then you have to write a workflow to somehow import the data. You actually want it really simply in there. And also, you don't necessarily want to involve a load of technical people to get it set up every single time. You actually want it to be something which your site owner or the comms team who manage your website can set up. So that's very much the vision which we built our product around. And looking at that, there's a lot of use cases around whether that's for a website or forms when people are at a physical place, where actually making that really easily and accessible and just plugging it into the environment you're already in is really important.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think a lot about, all the tools that I've made over the years have been all these custom platforms, custom solutions. The idea of being able to give the power back to, some of those less technical users to be able to manage some of those inputs, I think is amazing. So we start talking about best of breed. I kind of dropped this term earlier, best of breed. And I've been saying for the last few years, as we start to think about where software is headed, where applications are headed, especially with the cloud, especially with modern work, instead of thinking everything needs to be a certain, platform or come from a certain company, I'm starting to really see the beauty in having tools that can essentially marry up the best of whatever's out there. So we start thinking about best of breed with forms being the idea that I don't have to be dependent on a platform to be able to have a form solution that can then work with any of the other platforms or data sources or workflow engines that I'm already using.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people have gone past the world, and especially with the growth in the cloud and hybrid working, obviously the latest thing in terms of AI, people have going past the idea of I must have one platform which does every single thing I do. And actually companies need to move quickly and in an agile way. And so they need solutions which can plug in easily to their different systems, data sources which they use. So they may well be dependent on Microsoft for using SharePoint or Microsoft Lists or Dataverse even, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use Microsoft Forms as the way that data is inputted into it. You might use Microsoft Forms in some of those use cases, but you might use something else for some of those other use cases, and that's okay because it's actually fitting what's the best need to meet your requirements.
Exactly. Back to that, making the tool serve you instead of the other way around.
All right. So this is me. I'll talk a little bit about our public forms offering briefly, and then I'll show a demo. So our public forms application is actually a feature within our larger forms product. It allows us to do a number of additional capabilities in terms of making forms externally public, anonymous access forms. It's a really nice and easy to use designer, directly accessible from within SharePoint. Obviously, your data submits directly into your SharePoint list, so there's no Cloudflow or any other workflow you need to do in between that. It's got all of the enhanced validations and conditions which you want. So think of some really simple examples like I want to capture someone's email address and make sure that it's a valid email address. I want to make certain fields required. I want to make certain fields visible if someone ticks a specific field. We want to support multi-tabbed forms, so we take people through a workflow process as they actually go and complete that form. We support enhanced controls like uploading a picture and marking it up. canvas controls where you've got a preset image and you can mark that up. I've got an example I'll show you of using like a rental car picture, capturing signatures, accepting terms. We also have a range of out-the-box templates, so you can get going really, really quickly. And that was the previous case study I mentioned. That was one thing for them. They wanted to actually have something which they could just use, because actually most contact forms, most job applications, most of those standard forms actually capture the same amount of data. So let's make it really quick and easy. And the most important thing is it goes into SharePoint, so it can integrate with our forms and workflow products within SharePoint, and work with all of the other solutions and capabilities within that platform as well. So if you want to use Power Automate or something else like that, once it's into SharePoint, you can do. So let's jump into a demo, I think. Okay. Hopefully you'll be able to see my screen, or let's not do that, because then that's a creepy, weird mirror experience. I'll put it over there and hopefully we can see that. So I'll start off with taking an example of what I was talking about, which is a form on a website. So I've got a form here, which is just included as part of my website. And I'm going to come here and just fill that form in, and it's going to submit to my SharePoint site. Not a great initial start. I was testing this a second ago and it worked really well. So there we go. Right, we'll have Sharon as my data subject today. And so we can do things like having, and I'll show you as I, hopefully I'm under pressure.
What internship am I applying for? This looks fun.
Yeah, I don't know, what sort of preference are you, Sharon? Like marketing or technical or developer maybe?
Yeah, so let's do technical for sure.
Yeah, well, I haven't got technical, so we'll put operations. We can support file upload, so I've got a little CV file here, and then go, I have 30 years experience.
I'm totally not getting this internship.
Yeah, you're too experienced. Microsoft Space. And I'm going to go ahead and submit this form. There's lots of other things which we can do here, but this is just a simple example of embedding that form. You'll notice this message I put here, it comes up here, that's entirely customizable within our public forms. So if I switch over to the other side here, and I'll bring this screen across, this is my SharePoint list, and we can see immediately that Sharon's here. So I haven't had to do anything. There's no workflow going on. It's just been automatically submitted. That's now a SharePoint list item. I can go and do whatever I want with that item. And just to prove it, if I go and view this item, it should have the attachment at the bottom here as well. So really, really simple. If I go into our apps and I'll go to the public forms page, I'll show you a little bit about how this is actually configured. So I've actually used one of our pre-built templates to configure this specific public form, and you can see it here. One of the nice things is you can actually support multiple forms for the same list. So if you've got different intake options, you have different events you want to intake into the same list, you can do that sort of thing. And you can actually tag default columns as well. So here I've got my form, which I've set up, and I've got my different columns here. I can do a lot of different things here, so I can switch these columns around really easily. I can increase the size of them. So if I want a specific column bigger or larger, I can do that sort of thing. And I can actually easily drag and drop columns, which I've got available here. So this is my form designer, where I can design my form. I can add additional controls and restrictions. But let me actually go and show you building a new form from scratch. So I'll just leave this form behind for a second. And I'll go and show you it from the beginning. So I'll go and show you, let's just come out here, and I'll go and find one of my lists. So I've got a completely brand new list here. You see, it's just got the title field. So you can either start with a complete blank list, or you can start with a list with your column set up onto it. It's completely flexible, because our form designer will either pick up your existing columns, or it will let you go and add new columns as part of the design experience. So it's very flexible in that sense. So the designer pops up here, and if I go and click new form, you'll notice I've just got the title column here. So if I want to, I can drag this column onto the page. I can also go and create new columns directly here, and this will go and create them in my SharePoint list. So it's removing some of those barriers of, I have to set up the SharePoint list and create them, but it can obviously work with those existing lists. My favorite thing is the gallery. So I can come in here and I've got a number of preset templates. We make a number of templates available, but you can also build templates for your organization and use them. So I'm going to use this one, which is just a simple contact us form. Now, you'll notice here immediately it creates a number of these fields, and these reds just highlight that it's not available. So I can either map that myself, or I can just create a new column. So I'll just go and create these columns quickly, and then my form will be all set up exactly how I want it. I can go and customize this form. So if I don't like the way something's laid out, or I want to drag on additional columns, I can do that. As I already showed you, these can be moved around. You can move fields around the page if you want to very easily. So it's a really nice, simple to use designer. If I want to preview it at any point, I can have a little look at it and it will pop me up a preview here. It's because I haven't saved it, so it won't show me a preview just yet. There's a few other simple things which we can do. So I can do things like validations. We talked about email and other types of data types. We have a number of pre-built validations. So you can look in here. We can say a column is required. We have validations for phone number, email, zip code, postal code, URL. We can also even write custom validations. So if we want people and require data to be entered in a certain format, we can do. We can also put conditional controls. So for example, here, I could say, well, if someone ticks promotion emails, I only want work email displayed under those conditions. So I can go and add a condition here, and I can go when promotional emails equals checked, that will be only under those conditions will that particular column be shown. So actually really, really quickly and very simply being able to build those validations. I'm going to save this form as I'm talking, just so we can actually go ahead and see it set up. So here's my form. I can go back in and preview it now, so I can actually see what that looks like. So I can see that form. I can also, we talked about making it available through different interfaces. So I immediately have a URL I can use. So I can open up that URL. I've got an embed code, so I can just copy that embed code and just stick it straight in my website. If I'm not a website designer and I don't like the size or formatting of it, I've got some options to control that formatting. So I can change the width and padding and other things like that. The other nice thing here is I can set some default values. So I talked about that idea of having multiple intake forms coming in with different values. So if I wanted to have different default values coming in, I can do as well. So really sort of simple. Here's my intake form just loading. So it has its own standalone public URL, which I can go and access. So really simply able to make it available either through a website embed or just providing a direct link. I think I've got time to show one more quick example. So I'll go and take one of my other lists here, which is car rental. And I just wanted to, the reason I picked this is I wanted to show you an example of another control type. So as well as capturing those fields of information, we can capture different control types. And we can also take people on a multi-stage journey of completing a form. Think about things like when you're filling in your tax form and you like, if you've completed this section, go to this section, or do this part first and then go to this part of the form. it's that sort of idea that we can take people through multiple stages of a form process, as well as having additional controls and other information which they want to go through. My browser is not playing today, but there we go. So I'll come here and I'll just create a new form. One of the things which we have here is elements. So we can have controls such as accept terms, file upload, signature line, checkbox. We also have canvas controls. So there's a few really nice use cases for this one. Think of things like you're on a building site or you're in an office and you find a health and safety risk. You can take a picture of that on your phone, and that picture will be taken. You can circle or cross that fault and submit that data straight away. So really interactive, different types of controls. The one I'm going to use is the car rental example. And this has a some of these standard fields, but it also has a canvas control. And one of those canvas controls is for you can preset an image by default if you want to. So you see here that I've got these different tabs. So you can come in here and add additional steps or tabs to your form. And this one has a preset control here. So you see here, we can actually go and preload. We make a number available to you, but you can also preload your own controls here, which is a really nice way of capturing data. And I'll show you my last piece of my demo today, which everyone laughs at, but it's one of my favorite little features, which is the QR code. So like, it's really simple, but you might be able to do it. You might be able to follow along with me, but I'll try and take a quick fill in the form on my phone, and then I'll load up the mobile app on my my Mac here. So if I lock this, it should.
Yeah, just the step of not having to go create that QR code is a time saver.
Yeah, so I'll leave that QR code there if anyone watching wants to try and fill it in. And I'll do this for myself. So this sort of, I'm thinking scenarios where you can even go to events and you get event feedback, or you're in a physical location and you just need to scan and interact with that form. And look at how I'm filling this form in, and I click through to the next section. So it's taking me on a journey, and it's presenting me with this image. So I could let me take a picture. In this case, gives me a preset image, and I can go and actually mark this up. So I can see, oh, actually there's some damage here before I accept this rental car. And I can go and submit it. And it will just attach that image as an attachment to my item. And it should have said, actually, you can actually configure in the form those default messages which pop up when you've submitted. And that data, again, is just going to submit directly into my SharePoint list. So perhaps we'll finish our journey there, because that's what this is all about, that this will then just become an item in my SharePoint list. So I can go and then drive my other workflows and other actions directly from that SharePoint list.
Hey, can I throw in that why has Microsoft not added, is just a thought here, to like the share button everywhere, a little QR code generator? Why is that not just an automatic option everywhere?
No.
Well, anyway,
no.
Yeah.
So I see we do have a quick question about supporting e-signatures. So
yeah. So at the moment, our signature is just a plain signature control. So it's somewhere where you can draw on. It doesn't yet plug into a third-party signature service. So if you're okay with just taking a physical signature and you don't need that sort of audited legal, this was signed at this time, then as part of our options, one of the controls which we provide is a signature control. So if you were just, I don't know, say for instance, you got a delivery to your house or something like that, and you wanted to just get someone to draw the fact that that had been received. I can go and drop a signature line in here, and that will be saved with the form. If you've got a requirement more around plugging into actually an electronic signature type solution, probably the best way to deliver something like that would be post submission, because you need to know the person to actually send that signature process to, so you can actually stamp that as a specific individual. The challenge with like an anonymous form as such is it's anonymous, so you don't necessarily know who that person is.
Yeah, and I do know there's connectors built into SharePoint lists for DocuSign, Adobe Sign, and SharePoint eSignature. So like you were saying, as part of that workflow, you could collect the information and then you could actually run that signature piece as part of your workflow or as part of your list connections if you wanted to do that after the fact.
And we're actually doing that with another customer at the moment. They're taking external submissions in from external partners and other people which they work with from an education capacity. And then once it's gone through some internal processes, someone needs to sign off on that. And so then that's triggering a formal signature process as an approval piece.
Yep. No, that's a great answer.
One thing which I wanted to share with everyone is actually we are in the next couple of weeks are going to be renaming our Public Forms product or Public Forms feature to SOS Intake, SnapOn Software Intake. That's our next iteration of our Public Forms solution. Anyone who uses our current core form solution and workflow engine gets access to our Public Forms feature, and that will remain the same. But if you just want our forms, our intake forms, our anonymous forms, you're going to be able to license those separately and standalone as a standalone product. It's going to be platform agnostic external forms with a standalone designer. So that designer engine, you'll be able to launch a standalone without a dependency on SharePoint. And the initial data sources which we'll be launching with are Microsoft Lists and Salesforce. And that's going to be launching October 31st. So that whole point and discussion about buying a solution and investing a solution which will work with your different platforms which you work for, we recognize that people potentially aren't on everything Microsoft. They might be using different CRMs, different collaboration tools. And so our intake solution is there to snap on to whatever you're trying to do. And to if you've already got all of your workflow processes and forms processes built internally within your environment, and you just need to intake some data into that, this is what we're bringing out in the next few weeks. So stay tuned, keep note on our social channels to find out more about that. And please do get in contact to find out more about that.
It's exciting. And so you heard it first here, guys, right? You get to have access to that information. If you're already part of that form solution tool, you're going to be able to see that. And otherwise, there's some really cool things coming. And so Smarter Consulting and SnapOn, the way that we do things is essentially, and it's really funny because Microsoft's kind of the same way. And I think a lot of people don't understand the partner ecosystem, but software development companies like to make software. That's their job. That's what they're good at. They love making the products. And the last thing that we want to do is take them away from that and have them spend all of their time, helping clients with things that are outside of that product realm, because that keeps them in their zone of genius. And so what we do in our zone of genius is help clients to be able to use those products. So we do things like business analysis, governance, deployment planning, change management planning, adoption, training, all those kinds of things to help you get more out of the products that you're using. And then we connect you with companies like SnapOn to be able to deliver some of these amazing products that maybe you didn't even know were out there, but now you do. And so now you can add those into your day-to-day rotation of applications and products that are going to make your life a little bit better and a little bit easier. So I know we've got some time at the end just scheduled for kind of open questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We can definitely see those in the comments section. You can also reach out to us. We'll post our information here at the end. Feel free to email or follow up with Peter or I or Christian. We would absolutely love to be able to help you. So if anybody has any questions, pop them out there. Otherwise, I don't know, Peter, if you have any common FAQs that people ask around the form solution tool that you'd like to share with people while we
I do have one that's kind of risk related, because both of you had mentioned how teams often find creative workarounds when they can't publish things, do what they need externally. But what are the hidden risks that those organizations are taking without realizing that?
I think, firstly, Sharon mentioned it earlier that like there's a tendency to start to lock things down in a Microsoft environment. So IT pros and security people tend to get in control of it and like, let's turn off this form of external access. Let's turn off this form of external access. It's incredibly easy with a credit card to go and sign up for something if you're the marketing team or the HR team or some other team, and they just need to go and implement a forms process really, really quickly. And by locking it down, what you end up doing the opposite of what you're trying to do. You're driving those people to another service. That service might not meet your internal compliance, security requirements. Do you know where the data is stored? Do you know what geolocation that data is stored in? And in the current world, that's really, really important to ensure that the data stays appropriate to your data residency requirements. And a lot of people just don't really consider that as a risk. We as a solution we're not hosting or storing any of that data. What that data from that form gets submitted directly into your SharePoint environment. You know where your SharePoint environment is. You know what data center that's stored in by Microsoft. So you've got confidence about that.
I know I don't see any other questions from the audience. If anybody like quick questions here. Maybe I know Sharon, you started to ask Peter about any common questions that you do get from clients.
I think you do get the question around data and where the data is stored, which I think I've already answered. I think one of the things which people sort of ask us quite a lot and ask, how do we go about sort of like setting up these forms, and should we have a single form connected to each list, or should we have multiple forms submitting into a single list? The terrible consultant answer is it probably depends on what you're trying to achieve. There's never a simple answer. I think it's always the forms are only going to work as well as the processes which you've got behind the scenes once you've got the data. So it's all very well and good in getting your data into SharePoint, but this is only one part of the story. You've got to then do the rest of it. So I think it really depends on your use case and how you're managing your data. And I think how we partner with people like Smarter Consulting is really important, because we are a product company. We build products, but we don't necessarily have the time and the bandwidth to work out how to use our products effectively within an individual customer's solution.
I just see one last question here from Mark is asking, can you create a PDF from the form?
So you can do. Again, our submission process at the moment is submitting to SharePoint, Microsoft lists. Salesforce is coming really, really soon. Once that data exists within your SharePoint environment, it's pretty easy to create a PDF. You can use solutions like Power Automate to do that. We have our own within our own workflow component within our form solution, being able to create a PDF as an action. So typically it depends what you need to do. So a good example would be someone fills in a form and submits it, but you want to email the person who did the submission a PDF copy of what they've submitted. So the form intake form submits to a list. We have a workflow action on that list, which then creates a PDF automatically and then can email it back to using the email address, which is obviously a valid email address because you've done that validation as part of that submission process. And that's probably a good example of how you could do a sort of workflow automation to go and create a PDF.
Excellent. Well, just a very quick wrap up here. So thank you both, fantastic insights. So thank you, Sharon and Peter, for walking us through both the challenges and the opportunities in this space. And this is something, it's kind of funny, doing a lot of the AMAs, answering questions from the community. There's two areas that we always get questions about: calendaring and forms. People are constantly asking questions about things. So big thanks to everybody who joined us today. And just as far as next steps, so there's links here that are available. Of course, you can go find it out on the SnapOn Software site if you are interested in a product demo, getting more information there. If you're trying to figure out how do I fit this in, we need to do other integrations. It's a bit more complicated than we're able to handle. We offer at Smarter Consulting a free consultation that we're happy to talk to you about that and maybe point you in the right direction or show you how we can help you get that up and running. And then the one last thing, we don't have the date yet for this, but we are going to be doing a part 2 where we're going to talk more about automation of these solutions in January. So we have a webinar and we have an ebook that's going to be coming out as well. So everybody who registered, watch for that. If you follow us, either company, you'll be able to see that through our marketing channels as well. So with that, and I do have one last slide that has, if you'd like to set up that free consultation, grab a quick snapshot of that.
Let's take a picture now.
Yeah, hey, I know. But with that, again, thank you everybody for participating. We know your time is valuable. We appreciate you spending part of it with us to explore the future with public forms. And on behalf of the entire team, the combined teams here, thanks for being here. And we'll see you next time, hopefully at the January webinar. So thanks
for
a lot,
joining.
everybody. And eventually I'll move this. I'll close this thing out. We'll be done. Oh, there we go. There's the final slide. That's what we're looking for. So professional. I know. Thank you, everybody.